How about this? Can you believe it? Holidays are right around the corner. Pre-filing begins at the end of this week for bills to hopefully get something done down in Jeff City. Let's talk about that with Patrick Ishmael of the Show Me Institute, Missouri-based think tank, joining us on KCMO. I know there's a lot to talk about here, Patrick. Income tax reform, transparency, things like that. But I want to know, is this the legislative session where these numbskulls get sports betting done?
Hey, Pete. Well, hope springs eternal. I will say that the legislature in the last couple of years has been pretty incompetent when it comes to getting like the key issues done and getting them done well. But, we got our fingers crossed. I think that sports betting, when you have a state like Kansas that, Missouri and Kansas are oftentimes in some competition, I think that Missouri is probably a little bit tired of money going across the state line for betting purposes. And I think that there should be a substantive debate about, the policy behind sports betting, whether it's a good idea to have that on your phone or not. But I think that it's got a pretty good chance. I think it's probably a better chance than a lot of items. But again, you still have to get it through a legislature that can't get bans on trying to transition children fully implemented. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see some school choice. I think that's been a topic, particularly the Most Scholars program, which has been very successful. I think that might get a little bit of a push. I think the Missouri Parents' Bill of Rights. I think education will be a top topic. I think income tax reform might see some stuff along the edges, but hopefully, school choice becomes a very top priority, right along with sports betting.
Well, here's the thing, though. The school choice stuff, it hasn't gotten anywhere in part because obviously Democrats are going to oppose it, but also many rural Republicans have also been against the idea of more school choice. So how do you break through that wall?
Well, that's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with just educating legislators about, the impact of not having school choice and not having transparency. Transparency in particular has been a top topic of mine. It used to be just about cities and counties being transparent about spending, but it's evolved to a point where, a lot of parents are concerned about what's in the classroom and how money is being spent there. And I think, when you tell, the public and it becomes clearer that, districts across the state are oftentimes failing in terms of actually educating kids, or where they're educating kids about CRT and other junk like that. A lot of parents don't know, and a lot of legislators didn't know, that only about 1 in 3 kids in the state is proficient in math, and yet you look at all the districts, and there are over 500, which frankly is too many. But you look at all these districts, and even though across the state only 1 in 3 is proficient in math, there are no unaccredited districts. There are no consequences for failure, and I think a lot of that comes to the reason for that is that I think a lot of parents and a lot of legislators just don't know that their districts and their schools are failing. So I think when you talk about reforming schools, you have to talk about choice, but you also have to have informed school choice. You have to make sure that parents and legislators know, the actual lay of the land with their district and school. And if they're failing, if they are, teaching things that they shouldn't be teaching, I think that knowing about those things, knowing exactly what schools and districts are doing is important to empowering parents to be able to make choices. And I think that demand for choice comes very quickly after.
All right. So what about, you mentioned income tax cuts. I know that, and you can confirm this, they've got some levers that kind of, automatically go into place if they have certain numbers of revenues, right? I don't know. What's the deal when it comes to income taxes and what kind of reform we could see there?
Yeah, the current law right now has basically a limit to how many cuts to the income tax you can do. So every year, if we hit certain revenue targets, the income tax automatically reduces by about 1/10 of a point, and then it caps out at something like 4.5%. What I think that might be discussed and I think ought to be implemented is just removing that floor so that instead of having to pass a new law, especially once you hit that limit, if we keep hitting these revenue targets, we should be reducing income taxes. And the idea here, of course, is that, income taxes are destructive to growth. They're the most destructive to growth, and then you have sales taxes, and then you have property taxes. And to the extent that you can move away from the income tax and toward other taxes, this is about tax cuts, but it's also about tax reform. It's making sure that our tax code optimizes and allows for people to invest in themselves and their community. Getting rid of the income tax is important. Getting rid of the earnings taxes is super important as well. There was actually a hearing just a couple weeks ago in Kansas City on it. So I know that the legislature is interested in that topic.
So the legislature could get rid of the Kansas City earnings tax?
No, well, I think that they're looking at ways of because I think there might have to be a constitutional amendment to actually do that. And so they're having listening sessions across the state right now to actually have that done. Now, whether that's imminent or not doesn't seem likely. I know that the city of Kansas City, rather than having votes every 5 years, they're trying to get the legislature to have a vote every 10 years.
Yeah.
And so we'll see exactly what ends up happening there. But I know that the legislature is not exactly inclined to act unilaterally on this. That was pretty clear from the committee hearing. But the point, though, is that whether you're talking about the earnings tax or the income tax, moving away from both of those taxes would be great for the state of Missouri. And if you look at the states that are growing, most of them don't have an income tax, and that's not a coincidence.
Yeah, Florida, Tennessee, Texas do not have state income taxes. Those are the ones that come to mind. New Hampshire, Washington State, some others. So, but what about so some people will say, well, if you go to Texas, I guess they have very high property taxes relative to surrounding states. And some might say, well, is it robbing Peter to pay Paul? How do you respond to that out of curiosity?
Well, I think that's a fair criticism. I think there are a lot of ways that you can look at taxation, and from the Show Me Institute's perspective, we generally look at it from the perspective of growth, and because the income tax is most destructive to growth, that's usually what we talk about. But I think you can make fair arguments on different terms about why property taxes are bad. It's the idea that do you really own your property if it can be kind of taken from you if you don't pay your fee to it or taxes to it or your rent on it. And I think that's a real objection to. I think some compression maybe to sales taxes is a good approach. Of course, there are downshots to that as well. You have to make sure that you're not carving things out of the sales tax or giving giveaways to special interests in the sales tax or the property tax you do have. But yeah, I think criticisms of a really, really property tax heavy taxing regimes I think can be very fair and oftentimes are very fair. But from my perspective and our perspective, I think the priority for income taxes or for taxes in general is that they are, equitably applied, like they're fairly applied. You don't have exceptions all over the place, and that you're not taxing people for being productive. And when you have an income tax, that's exactly what you're doing.
Patrick Ishmael with the Show Me Institute. All right, man, we're going to be in full-blown legislative mode here in a couple of months, so we'll be chatting, I'm sure, a lot in the months ahead.
Hopefully we'll have lots of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, something tells me we won't, but I hope so too. Thank you very much to Patrick Ishmael.